Hey, it's Naftali. Thanks for joining me on the Humans Working Book Marathon. Today's section is called Innovation. Now, innovation is not a process. It's not even a thing that we do. It's an integral part of business 24/7, right? It looks to a lot of people like innovation is inventing a new product or something like that. But innovation happens all the time. Innovation is what's needed to solve a difficult technical problem, to solve a difficult legal or regulatory challenge, to figure out how to deal with a difficult customer, to figure out a new sales strategy. All of these things, when done from an innovative mind as opposed to a copycat mind, will drastically improve your business. Right? So if you're asking, well, how do I do innovation? Well, that's a totally separate question. But what I can tell you is that in my experience with myself personally, my companies that I've worked with, innovation comes when you least expect it. Companies that are really innovative generally try to shy away from those brainstorming meetings, right? They realize that true genius kind of bubbles up when it bubbles up. And generally it bubbles up when there's not a lot on your mind, right? I think, as I've mentioned earlier, we've all had that experience where we are, maybe taking a shower or just waiting in line at the cafe or taking a walk in the woods or whatever, maybe on an airplane. Those are some of the times when we get our best ideas, really our most innovative ideas. And again, those might be ideas for a product that we want to develop, or just how to solve a technical problem, or how to solve a challenge we've been having with our partner. All kinds of things, like brilliant insights. Even if you don't call them innovative, they're insights. Things that just, you see something new from within, not from outside, right? And I think Google even sort of knew this early on when they dedicated, their employees had 20% time, they called it, where they could spend 20% of their time working on sort of a passion project, if you will. Just something that they found interesting, loosely related to technology. It didn't have to be in line with one of Google's already existing products. Didn't have to be towards a new product. It just had to be developing something, right? Working on something that the developer or whoever found cool, right? And through that, some really, really neat products came out of Google. In fact, I think Gmail was one of them, right? My point is that you don't have to have structure to have innovation. Innovation is an inside job. Inspiration is an inside job. It comes from here, right? Now, those brainstorming meetings, they seem to not work because often what's sort of underlying those brainstorming meetings is one of several things. One, the boss is up front running it, which does not usually lead to clarity, right? People are worried about performance, saying something stupid, trying hard to say something interesting, etc. Second is they're often done like at the beginning of the year or the end of the year, where it's like, hey, we got to really, leapfrog the competition. Let's get some we need good, like, big ideas here, big ideas. And again, nobody really works well with like a fear-based thing, right? Or it's often like, hey guys, things are looking pretty rough around here. What's some ideas that are really gonna like lift us out of the trash, right? And that's the worst time to be thinking about this stuff, right? You really want people to be able to come up with stuff when they do, but also give them a space to be able to work on that stuff, right? Somebody says, hey, I have a great idea. I just need to sit down and prototype it. Take me a few hours. Don't be so dumb as to say, no, do that later. Do that later once you've forgotten about it. No, don't do that. Don't worry about the structure and we've got real work to do. We can think. No, it's those innovative moments. It's those magic moments that you want to keep feeding that fire, right? Somebody says like, hey, I got a brilliant idea to solve a technical problem for a new product, for whatever. Yeah, go in your corner. I'll keep throwing food at you. Just, you will tell me what you want. I'll just sit there until you figure it out. Keep going. Don't worry about your work. Don't worry about your timesheet. Don't worry. Just, if you can encourage people that way, watch what some of the magic can bring, right? another way to think about innovation is if you think about kids, right? Why are kids good at being creative? Because they don't have a lot on their mind about it, right? There's not a lot to lose. Right? If you give a kid a pile of Legos, they don't say like, oh, what are these for? How do I build something that looks right? They just start snapping them together, right? And of course, when kids are really little, it looks like nothing. But to them, it looks like something. They'll often tell you like, oh, look, I built a skyscraper, or I built, a dragon, or whatever. And you're like, oh, I don't see it, but I get it. And that's the whole idea, is that kids are naturally creative. You give kids some crayons and they'll draw you a picture of whatever's in their head, and they'll tell you that that's what it is. Right? They'll invent a story. They are inventive. They are creative. They make something out of nothing. And in fact, that's what we do as sort of product innovators as well. Right? The best, the sort of most impactful innovations of our day, products of our day, if you will, weren't improvements on some other product. They're really kind of their own thing, right? Like the iPod, the iPhone, the automobile, light bulb, space shuttle, these kinds of things. They weren't like a better mousetrap. They were like something that came to somebody out of nothing, right? So from nothing comes something. Isn't that amazing that we have that capacity to invent something from nothing? We don't have to always build on something else. We don't have to look at what our competitors are doing to figure out what to do next. We don't have to look at what we did yesterday to figure out what to do next. We don't need to look at what failed to know what might succeed. We can just come from nothing. And that's the hardest place to come from. It's the hardest place to sit and just be quiet, really quiet inside, and watch what shows up, right? It's like having a TV, right? That's receiving, like old school TV with the rabbit ears, right? That's like receiving signals from wherever, right? But in front of the antenna, you put like some, something else that emits a whole bunch of other signals, right? A whole bunch of noise, right? Like it's a microwave or something that's emitting a bunch of noise. And because of that, the antenna can't receive any new signals. There's just so much noise and clutter that it can't receive anything new. But that's what I'm saying. When you quiet down, and we've all had this experience, like I said, an airplane or a shower or whatever, and when you get used to it and you learn to trust it, it happens all the time. It doesn't look like a mistake. Serendipity also happens to happen all the time. You run into people that you need to meet all the time. One trick that's been happening for me recently is I'll go to bed with a question about something. It might be a technical question, or a question about nutrition, or a question about something spiritual or something practical. And then this has happened probably 10 times over the past month. The next day, I'll just log onto YouTube, like the homepage of YouTube, and the answer to the question that I was asking is like the first or second video. It's happening all the time now. Now, I don't know, maybe that's new age stuff, maybe that's just crazy, maybe it's just a coincidence, I don't know. But I think it's kind of cool. I mean, so much so that like I use it as a trick now. I'm like, I don't know the answer, but it's on YouTube. I'm just gonna like put it out there, and YouTube will show me what I need tomorrow without even searching or anything. Right? So even if you don't get one of these like brainstorms and you're like, I know what the world needs, an iPod, right? You might get a little tiny zygote of an idea, and you can just start doing something with it. But leave open the possibility that, next week you're going to get another little idea, an idea that you have no idea of right now. You have no idea of where it's going to come from, and you have no idea what the idea is going to look like. But if you're open, if you're really open to that idea showing up, it will show up. And if you're also not tied to when it might show up, if you're like, no, I need ideas by the end of the day, good luck to you. But man, stuff just will keep piling and piling and piling and piling, and before you know it, got yourself an iPod type idea. All right. So I want to just tell you a short little story about often when I was working with any one of my software development teams that I worked with at several different companies, one of them would invariably come to me and say like, hey, there's this technical thing I've been working on for hours or days. I just can't figure it out. Can you sit down and help me with it? And I would be happy to. And usually I'm somewhat technical, but usually they were, far more technical than I ever was. So I, instead of sitting down with them, I'd say, yeah, sure, let's go for a walk. And they'd be like, no, I gotta finish this. I'm like, yeah, I know, let's go for a walk. And we'd go for a walk outside, and we just walk around. And I'd talk about anything other than the problem: sports, their kids, food, the weather. I mean, literally anything. And invariably, 10, 15 minutes into the walk, every single time, they'd interrupt me. They'd wait, can I interrupt you? I have that problem? I have an idea. And they'd start to talk about it. And I got it. And they'd go back to their computer, and in 5 minutes, they'd fix it. They'd have figured it out. Right? Or what would also happen many, many times is they'd say, hey, help me with this thing. And I'd sit down with them, and we'd be looking at the computer screen. They explained to me, like, here's the problem, and I tried this, and I tried that, and I tried this, and there's this thing, and this, that. And as they're talking, they're like, oh, never mind, it's right here. But they've been looking at it for hours, just looking at it from a slightly different angle, getting some of the words out of the cluttered mind. It helps. It really, really helps. The last thing I want to say about this is we're often horrible predictors of what will actually work, like in the marketplace, right? Even if we have a good idea, we're horrible about predicting whether the market is actually going to want it, or if our idea is going to be even, possible, right? So you might have an idea for an iPod. You're like, hey, I want to put 1,000 records on a little thing. I have no idea how to do it, but I'm going to try it. And it might be impossible. It might actually be impossible. But my point here is that we are horrible predictors of knowing what will work. One of my favorite examples of being horrible predictors at what's going to succeed and what's going to not succeed is this company called Bessemer Venture Partners. They're a VC firm in California. They've been involved in over 117 IPOs. So they would probably be considered one of the best companies in the world at predicting which company is going to be a good company to invest in. Yet, they've posted on their website what they call an anti-portfolio, sort of a self-deprecating humor attempt at showing which companies they were invited to invest in, but they passed on as being a dumb idea. Right? Companies like Apple, eBay, Facebook, Google, Intel, Tesla, and others. Right? I think they passed on FedEx 8 times. Right? So please stop convincing yourself that you know if an idea is going to work. If something is driving you, if something from the inside, as I've said 1,000 times, try it out. What's the problem? You have no idea, literally no idea if it's going to work, if you're going to be able to build it, or even if you are able to build it, if it's going to work in the marketplace. And often, in my business, in terms of predicting, the people that I've talked to who I swore would never become clients or could never afford to work with me, many of those people became clients, and vice versa. The people that I were like, oh yeah, of course they're going to work with me, of course they can afford it, they've been like, it's way too expensive, or I've got tons of stuff to do, or whatever. So I'm saying I've been wrong about who's going to sign up and who's not with me probably 90% of the time. So I'm glad I don't trust my instincts too well, otherwise I'd have about 90% less business, right? So anyway, with that, I will say goodbye, and talk to you soon. Cheers.